My daughter laughed as she stole my $3 million savings at my retirement party, exclaiming, "I'm going to buy a villa in Hawaii with this money." Her husband said mockingly, "You're gonna die soon anyway." I smiled back, knowing they had just fallen into my trap. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor as Wilma screamed, "You promised me that money." But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from earlier that evening, when I still believed my daughter might surprise me with genuine affection at my retirement party. 2 weeks before, Etta Ramirez from First National had called. "Ray, I shouldn't be telling you this, but your daughter's been asking questions about your accounts. Wanted to know about beneficiaries, balances." I'd thanked Etta and started preparing. 40 years at Boeing taught me that documentation beats confrontation every time. The afternoon of my party, I adjusted the hidden cameras I'd installed in the living room corners. Small things, no bigger than buttons. My phone's recording app worked perfectly. I tested it 3 times. At 65, I wasn't the confused old man my daughter apparently thought I was. Wilma and Larry arrived at 6, carrying a briefcase that seemed heavier than it should be. My daughter wore a designer dress that cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Her smile never reached her eyes anymore. Hadn't for years, really. Larry, my son-in-law, kept checking his phone, muttering about business calls. He positioned himself near my study door, like a bouncer at an exclusive club. "Dad, you look wonderful." Wilma kissed my cheek, leaving lipstick I knew she'd complain about later if I didn't wipe it off immediately. I left it there. My former Boeing colleagues arrived in waves. Tom Martinez, who'd worked beside me on the F-15 project. Sandra Chen from Quality Control. The Johnsons from 3 houses down. Normal people who'd earned their retirements through decades of honest work. I watched Wilma whisper to Larry between greeting guests. They moved like dancers who'd rehearsed their routine countless times. The speeches started after dinner. Tom raised his beer, talked about 40 years of dedication, about the time I'd caught a design flaw that would have cost lives. Sandra mentioned my mentorship, how I'd helped her when nobody else would give a young Asian woman a chance in aerospace engineering. Their words felt real. Then came Wilma's turn. "Family takes care of family," she said, dabbing at tears that never quite materialized. "That's what Dad taught me. Now it's our turn to take care of him." Larry nodded along, adding condescending remarks about enjoying the golden years, about not having to worry about complex financial decisions anymore. Then came the moment they'd been building toward. Wilma produced a stack of papers mixed with retirement cards. "Dad, I've prepared something special for you. Some colleagues sent cards to sign, and remember that Children's Cancer Fund you mentioned last month? I took the liberty of preparing the donation paperwork." The stack was clever. Congratulations cards on top requiring signatures. In the middle, barely visible, documents with dense text. Charity donation forms as decoys scattered throughout. Larry shifted position, blocking the other guest's view. Wilma guided my hand to the signature lines. "Don't strain your eyes reading all that fine print, Ray," Larry said. "It's standard charitable giving forms." Tom called out from across the room. "Ray, tell us about the avionics breakthrough on the F-15. "Dad, just sign here and here," Wilma urged. "The notary is only available tonight. She has to leave soon." I signed each document while discreetly photographing the pages with my phone. My hand moved naturally, years of multitasking serving me well. "How thoughtful, sweetheart. You've always been so organized." The notary, a nervous woman who avoided eye contact, stamped and signed where Wilma pointed. She left immediately after, clutching an envelope Wilma handed her. By 10, the last guests had gone. Wilma was on her phone in the bathroom. I heard muffled celebration, something about Hawaii. Larry helped himself to my vintage bourbon collection, the one I'd been saving since Martha passed. Neither asked permission. While cleaning up, I found a torn envelope in the trash. The Children's Hospital logo stared up at me from the pieces. They hadn't even tried to hide their contempt. Alone in my kitchen, I reviewed the photos on my phone. Power of attorney, complete financial control. Every account, every investment, every penny I'd saved over 4 decades of work. The image quality was perfect, every word readable. They thought I was a fool. Tomorrow, they'd learn differently. I went to bed at my usual time, setting my alarm for early morning. I knew what was coming. The morning sun hadn't yet reached my bedroom window when my phone buzzed with the bank notification I'd been expecting. $3 million. Transfer completed. Authorized by power of attorney. I stared at my phone screen, then dialed the bank, keeping it on speaker while my phone recorded everything. "This must be some mistake," I said to the representative. $3 million transferred from my retirement accounts. "Mr. Gray, I show the transfer was authorized with power of attorney documents dated yesterday, signed and notarized." "But that's impossible. That was for charity donations." "I'm sorry, Mr. Gray. The documents appear to be legal. You'll need to contact an attorney if you believe there's been fraud." I thanked her and hung up. Then I activated the living room and kitchen cameras, angles I'd tested dozens of times. The encrypted files went to Douglas Watson, my attorney for the past 20 years. My hands remained steady despite the show I was about to perform. At 8:30, Larry's Escalade rumbled into my driveway. They hadn't wasted time. They used their key to enter. I'd never changed the locks, knowing this day would come eventually. Wilma entered triumphant, actually carrying empty boxes. "To help Dad downsize," she announced to Larry, as if I wasn't standing right there. Larry went straight to my office, not even pretending to greet me first. "Wilma, thank God you're here." I let my voice crack. "Something terrible has happened." She arranged her face into an expression of concern that would have been convincing if I hadn't seen her real face so many times before. "What's wrong, Dad?" "My retirement savings. They're gone. The bank says someone transferred everything." Larry called from the office. "Maybe you forgot where you put them, old man. Seniors misplace things all the time." Wilma's transformation was instant. The mask didn't just slip, she threw it aside. Her laugh was sharp, bitter, triumphant. "Did you take my money?" I asked, letting my voice tremble. "Take?" She laughed harder. "You gave it to me, Dad. Signed and notarized. Don't you remember? Yesterday at your party? That was for charity, for sick children." Larry emerged from my office carrying my watch collection, the Omega Martha had given me for our 25th anniversary among them. "Charity begins at home, Ray." $3 million, Wilma said, savoring each word. "Finally, I can buy that beach house in Hawaii I've always deserved, the one you never would help me buy when Mom was alive." "You were never much of a father," she continued, opening Martha's jewelry box. "Always at work, always with your precious airplanes. Consider this my inheritance, just a bit early." "Face it, old man," Larry added, unplugging my computer. "You're 65. What do you need money for? You'll be dead in a few years anyway." "This is how you treat your father?" I asked, making sure I was centered in the camera frame. "Social Security is enough for someone your age," Wilma said. "Besides, you love to talk about how your generation survived on so little. Now's your chance to prove it." They loaded their vehicles with 40 years of accumulated life. My tools, Martha's china. The photo albums, except for one picture of me alone at Boeing, probably left to maintain the illusion I still lived here normally. "Don't even think about calling the police," Larry warned. "We have your signature. Any court will see a confused elderly man who legally signed over power of attorney to his loving daughter." I sat heavily in my chair, shoulders shaking. "Please, Wilma, at least leave me something to live on." "We'll be back next week for the furniture worth selling," she said. "Try to act confused if anyone asks. Dementia, you know." "I'll remember everything," I said quietly. They laughed at that. "Sure you will, Dad." The moment their vehicles left my driveway, I called Douglas Watson. "Did you receive the files?" "Every word, Ray. Every document. This is textbook grand theft through elder abuse. The power of attorney was obtained through fraud. The notary will fold the moment she's questioned. Are you ready for what comes next?" "I've been ready since Etta called me 2 weeks ago." I downloaded the camera footage to 3 separate drives, one for Douglas, one for the police, one for backup. The image quality was pristine, every word audible, every cruel laugh, every theft documented. I looked around my emptied house. They'd taken things worth maybe $50,000 in their greed. They'd stolen $3 million through fraud. But what they'd really given me was everything I needed to destroy them legally. I poured myself coffee from the machine they'd deemed too old to steal and sat at my kitchen table. The real plan was just beginning. They wanted my money so badly they never stopped to wonder why I'd made it so easy. 40 years in aerospace taught me about redundancy, about backup systems, about documentation. They thought they were stealing from a weak old man. Tomorrow, they'd start learning who Raymond Gray really was. An engineer who'd helped design fighter jets. A man who'd survived Jim Crow, corporate racism, and 40 years of office politics. A father who'd loved his daughter until she proved unworthy of that love. The morning was quiet. Peaceful, even. I had calls to make, papers to file, justice to serve. Wilma and Larry were probably celebrating right now, planning their Hawaii purchase, dividing my life's work. Let them celebrate. The trap had been set, baited, and sprung perfectly. Now came the fun part. Douglas Watson's office occupied the entire 47th floor of the J.P. Morgan Chase Tower. But I didn't care about the panoramic view of Houston that morning. My hands gripped two bankers' boxes filled with evidence as I navigated the early traffic on Interstate 45. The sunrise painted the city skyline orange and purple, but my mind calculated each legal move like engineering blueprints. Every document, every recording, every photograph had been organized with the precision I'd applied to fighter jet schematics for 4 decades. The law firm's reception area gleamed with marble floors and oil paintings of Texas landmarks. I signed in at security, walked through the metal detector, and followed the escort to Douglas's office. Maria, his assistant for 20 years, offered coffee with knowing sympathy. "Mr. Watson cleared his entire morning for you, Mr. Gray." In the waiting room, other clients sat with defeated shoulders. I sat straighter, boxes balanced on my knees. Douglas Watson looked exactly like what he was, a former prosecutor who'd never lost his taste for justice. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, his office walls displayed framed headlines of victories against corporate fraud and elder abuse. I laid out my evidence methodically, hidden camera footage on 3 separate USB drives, audio recordings from my phone, time-stamped and verified, screenshots of every bank transaction, the original charity documents Wilma had tried to destroy, retrieved from my trash and carefully preserved, email printouts from Etta, showing Wilma's suspicious inquiries weeks before the theft. "Ray, in 30 years of practice, I've never seen such comprehensive preparation," Douglas said, reviewing the footage of Wilma and Larry's confession. "You knew they would rob you?" "I had a month to prepare. Etta Ramirez, who worked with my late wife at the hospital. She's at Chase Bank now. She alerted me when Wilma started asking about my accounts, trying to get information about beneficiaries and balances." "You let them steal $3 million?" Douglas leaned back, studying me. "I didn't just let them, Douglas. I orchestrated it." His eyebrows rose as I revealed the deeper plan. 3 months ago, before Etta's warning, I'd felt something shifting in Wilma's behavior. Call it paternal instinct or engineering paranoia. But I'd established the Emily Gray Memorial Trust, named for my wife. The purpose was specific: funding experimental immunotherapy treatment for 3 children with rare cancers at MD Anderson. I'd already met with the families, seen the children's medical files, watched their parents' desperate hope when I promised the funds would be available. The documents I spread across Douglas's desk told the complete story. Trust formation papers filed with the state, correspondence from MD Anderson's chief oncologist about the selected patients, photos of 3 children: Maria, age 7, with neuroblastoma; James, age 9, fighting leukemia's return; Aaliyah, age 5, with a brain tumor. A Houston Chronicle article from 2 weeks ago. Retired Boeing engineer pledges millions for children's cancer care. They stole money meant for dying children? Douglas's voice dropped to a whisper. Every penny. I made sure the trust documents were public record, posted about it on the Boeing Retirees Forum, told neighbors at the community meeting. This transforms everything, Ray. This isn't just theft anymore. This is wire fraud across state lines, elder abuse with aggravating factors, and theft from a charitable trust. In Texas, with federal charges added, he loosened his tie, poured himself water. We're looking at 20 years minimum, maybe life. The conference room door opened at 8:15. Etta Ramirez entered, dignified despite her visible anger, carrying a worn leather folder. She'd worked at Chase for 35 years, knew my Emily since high school. They'd been nurses together before Etta moved to banking. "Emily made me promise to watch over you," she said, opening her folder. "That girl trying to steal from her father and sick babies. She visited the bank 6 times in February, always asking questions about power of attorney, about account access procedures. She tried to add herself as beneficiary without your knowledge. When that failed, she started befriending younger staff members, taking them to lunch, fishing for information. Her sworn affidavit detailed everything. February 3rd, Wilma asking about Texas power of attorney rules. February 10th, security footage showing Wilma photographing bank documents when staff were distracted. February 28th, Wilma filing a false complaint trying to get Etta fired for discrimination. "You risked your job warning me," I said. "She tried to have me fired anyway. Now she'll learn about Texas justice." Etta's eyes blazed. "Mr. Watson, I'll testify anywhere, anytime. I have recordings of her trying to bribe me for account information." Douglas outlined our counterattack strategy while I signed the necessary documents. Emergency injunction to freeze all of Wilma and Larry's assets, filed within the hour. Criminal complaint with Houston PD's Elder Abuse Unit. Detective Morrison was already waiting. FBI notification for interstate wire fraud. Douglas had a contact from his prosecutor days. Civil suit for triple damages under Texas elder abuse statutes. The paperwork ready for filing. As Douglas made calls, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. The text made me pause. "Mr. Gray, this is Special Agent Chen, FBI Financial Crimes. We've been monitoring the Kellys' activities for 6 months. Can we meet today?" I left Douglas's office with a new understanding. The trap had caught more than just my daughter and her husband. The FBI field office in Houston looked nothing like the movies, just a nondescript building off Highway 290, where Special Agent Chen explained that my daughter had bigger problems than just me. His office was cramped, filled with bankers' boxes similar to mine. Financial crimes investigation charts covered one wall. Red strings connected photos of faces I didn't recognize, except for 2 in the center, Wilma and Larry, photographed leaving a Wells Fargo branch. Agent Chen, mid-40s with an accountant's precision and prosecutor's intensity, spread surveillance photos across his desk. "Mr. Gray, your daughter and son-in-law have been under federal investigation for 6 months. Your case gave us the smoking gun we needed." The photos told a story I'd never imagined. Larry meeting with known criminals at a warehouse in Pasadena. Wilma entering nursing homes across Harris County. Bank records showing patterns. 7 elderly victims identified so far. Total theft exceeding $8.5 million. Larry's construction company was a front, laundering money through fake renovations that never happened. How did I not know my daughter was a career criminal? My hands trembled, not from age but from rage. They were careful, professional. They made mistakes only when they got greedy with you. $3 million in one theft? That exposed their entire operation. Chen showed me more documents. "We were building our case slowly. Your evidence accelerates everything. What happens next? We arrest them when they try to leave the country. And Mr. Gray, they already bought tickets to Hawaii, one way. I'd hired Frank James 2 days after the theft, needing eyes on Wilma and Larry while I worked with Douglas. Frank, a former Houston PD detective, had just called with his first surveillance report. His gravelly voice detailed what he'd observed that morning. 11 o'clock, your daughter's at the ATM on Westheimer. Card got declined. She's screaming at the machine, kicking it. 11:30, Larry's inside Chase Bank, finding out all their accounts are frozen. The banker had to call security when he started threatening staff. Frank paused. Got it all on video from my car. At noon, they're in the parking lot having a massive fight. She's blaming him for not being careful. He's calling her stupid for targeting her own father. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Wilma, 5 voicemails. I played the latest on speaker for Frank to hear. "Dad, there's been some terrible mistake. The bank's frozen everything. This is illegal. You can't do this to your own daughter. Call me back immediately." In the background, Larry shouted something about the stupid old man set us up. Frank continued his report. "They've tried 12 ATMs across Houston. Larry called Michael Torres, that criminal lawyer who defends cartel members. They're packing their cars right now, throwing everything valuable inside. Just saw them purchase plane tickets online. Hawaii, leaves day after tomorrow, early morning flight." "Let them run," I said. "The FBI is watching." "There's more, Ray." Frank's tone shifted. "Found their storage unit in Pearland, got photos through the window. It's full of documents, looks like records from other victims. There's a box labeled Patterson Estate." My breath caught. Mrs. Patterson was Emily's hospice nurse. They stole from her? Appears so. Want me to keep watching? Every move they make. 2 days later, Agent Chen called at 7 in the morning. They're in custody. Thought you'd want to know the details. He described the arrest like a choreographed operation. Terminal C at George Bush International, 5:30 a.m. Wilma and Larry checking oversized luggage for their Hawaii flight. FBI agents positioned throughout the terminal. Wilma spotted them first, tried to run, knocked over a family's luggage cart. Larry abandoned her instantly, sprinting for the exit, shoving elderly travelers aside. Both were tackled hard, handcuffed, while hundreds of passengers filmed with their phones. The local news crews were tipped off, Chen added. Channel 2, 11, 13, and 26 all got the footage. Your daughter screaming about you being senile, Larry demanding his lawyer. It'll be on every evening news program. The evidence seized at arrest was damning. $50,000 in cash split between their luggage. False IDs with different names, but their photos. USB drives containing spreadsheets of victims, amounts stolen, fake charity names used. Wilma's laptop showed she'd been doing this for 3 years. She inherited my planning skills, I told Chen. Just used them wrong. The next week, dominoes fell fast. Houston PD raided Wilma's real estate office. Douglas called with updates. Fraudulent deeds discovered, elderly clients identified as victims. Her office manager, Beth, already cooperating with investigators. Larry's construction sites were next. Frank watched it happen, calling me with play-by-play. FBI's hauling out boxes of fake receipts. Workers are telling agents Larry never paid employment taxes. They're seizing his equipment, says it was all purchased with stolen funds. Etta called me Thursday afternoon. Ray, you won't believe this. Larry offered me $100,000 to recant my testimony. I recorded the entire conversation. Another felony charge added to Larry's growing list. The media explosion was inevitable. Houston Chronicle's front page, daughter steals, dying children's cancer fund. Local TV interviewed MD Anderson staff about the 3 children whose treatments were delayed. I refused all interview requests, but other victims didn't. Mrs. Patterson, 78, lost $400,000 in life savings. Mr. Rodriguez, 82, lost his home to one of Wilma's real estate schemes. They formed a support group that met in Douglas's conference room. Frank's investigation uncovered more horrors. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands holding millions. Previous identity theft charges in California that Wilma had somehow escaped. Larry's connections to a Mexican money laundering operation. The FBI expanded their investigation, invoking RICO statutes. Federal asset forfeiture proceedings began immediately. Then came the call that broke my composure. Dr. Williams from MD Anderson. Mr. Gray, I need you to know the impact. Maria's parents are desperate. Insurance won't cover the experimental treatment. Her condition is deteriorating. We're trying to find emergency funding, but time is critical. I stood at Emily's grave that evening, speaking to her headstone. They didn't just steal from me, Emily. They stole from dying children. Your daughter did this. My phone rang. Douglas, breathless with news. Ray, you need to hear this. Larry wants to flip. He's offering to testify against Wilma for a plea deal. Says she was the mastermind. Has evidence of murders she planned that he stopped. The thieves' partnership was crumbling, just as I'd calculated it would. I was reviewing Douglas's message about Larry's betrayal when my doorbell camera alerted me to movement on the porch. Wilma stood there alone, without her usual designer confidence. Through the security app, I watched her pace back and forth, wringing her hands. Her Mercedes sat crooked in my driveway, driver's door still open, purse visible on the seat. No makeup, wrinkled clothes that looked slept in. This wasn't the polished manipulator who'd stolen millions 5 weeks ago. Before opening the door, I started my phone recording, texted Jake my location, and verified all living room cameras were active. The panic button Douglas insisted I carry went into my pocket. Neighbors across the street were tending their garden, witnesses if needed. Dad, please, we need to talk. Her voice cracked on the last word. My lawyer advised against this, Wilma. Just 5 minutes, please, I'm still your daughter. Against my better judgment, I led her to the living room, positioning myself between her and the exit, while keeping her centered in the camera's view. Let her incriminate herself further. Every word she spoke would be evidence. She dropped to her knees in a practiced motion, tears appearing instantly. Water without the redness of genuine crying. Remember when I was little? You taught me to ride that blue bike with the white streamers. You ran beside me for hours. Her designer purse, worth at least $5,000, contradicted her performance of desperation. Fresh gel manicure gleamed as she reached for my hands. I stepped back. Her phone buzzed with texts, the screen visible from where I stood. Larry's name, message preview, reading stick to plan. Mom would never forgive you for destroying your only daughter, she continued, ignoring the phone. I'm still that little girl who made you Father's Day cards with macaroni and glitter. That little girl didn't steal from dying children, Wilma. Larry influenced me. He made me do things I never would have considered. You know I've always loved you, Dad. Is that why you told the FBI I was senile? Why you called me a confused old man who'd be dead soon anyway? That was all Larry's idea. She stood abruptly, fake tears stopping like a faucet turned off. He forced me to say those terrible things. I pulled out my tablet, opening the video from March 16th. Her own voice filled the room. $3 million. Finally, I can buy that beach house in Hawaii I've always deserved. Then Larry, face it, old man. You'll be dead in a few years anyway. Her laughter on the recording was sharp, cruel. Wilma's transformation was instant. The performance evaporated, replaced by pure rage. You recorded us? That's illegal. Texas is a one-party consent state. I'm the party. This is entrapment. You set us up. The jury will understand the context perfectly, especially the part where you packed Mom's jewelry while calling me pathetic. Desperation cracked her voice. You're really going to let your daughter go to prison? What will people think of you, sending family to jail? She grabbed a vase, my wedding gift to Martha, and hurled it against the wall. I'll tell everyone you abused me as a child. I'll destroy your reputation. The truth speaks louder than lies, Wilma. Jake appeared at the window, visible but not intrusive. Wilma noticed him, and her rage erupted completely. We've been planning this for 3 years. You were supposed to be confused, not prepared. Mrs. Patterson was easier. She just signed without reading. She caught herself, face paling. Mrs. Patterson, Mom's hospice nurse? Larry has connections who could make you disappear, she screamed, then immediately tried to retract. I didn't mean that. I'm upset. I'm pregnant, Dad. You'd send your grandchild's mother to prison? Another lie? The FBI has your medical records from the arrest processing. Her shock at the extent of the investigation froze her mid-breath. She stormed out, knocking over Emily's photo deliberately. The frame shattered on the tile. Did you get all that on your body cam? I asked Jake. Every word, Mr. Gray. Crystal clear. I called Douglas immediately, sending him the new recordings. Frank James phoned while Douglas reviewed the files. Larry just left his lawyer's office in a rage. Prosecutors rejected his deal. Not enough value in his testimony. He's blaming Wilma for everything going wrong. Agent Chen texted, "We monitored her visit. Thank you for the additional evidence." Standing over the broken photo frame, carefully extracting Emily's picture from the glass shards, I whispered, "She showed her true nature, Emily, just as you predicted she would." The security system alert buzzed again. 3 unknown vehicles circling the block slowly. Jake's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Gray, we've got company. 3 cars, multiple occupants. They're not trying to hide." Through the security monitors, I watched the vehicles position themselves. A black SUV at the corner, white van across the street, gray sedan 3 houses down. The occupants made no effort at subtlety. Rough men with visible prison tattoos, taking shifts watching my house. Jake's team installed additional cameras within hours, documenting every license plate, every face. Frank James called with his investigation results. The van's registered to a shell company that traces back to Larry's construction business. The SUV was reported stolen last week in Pasadena. The sedan belongs to Tony Martinez, Larry's foreman. These aren't random criminals, Ray. I adapted immediately, varying my routines, never leaving alone, installing panic buttons in every room. Officer Martinez from HPD, no relation to Tony, explained the limitations. We can't arrest them for sitting in vehicles on a public street, but we're documenting everything and increasing patrols. That evening, my garbage cans were overturned, mail stolen from the box. They're testing our responses, I told Jake, looking for weaknesses. 5 days later, my modified morning walk with Jake took us through busy public areas only. 2 men approached aggressively near the park. "Hey, old man, we need to talk about your testimony." Jake stepped forward, hand moving to his licensed weapon, body camera recording. The men saw the camera and retreated. They followed us to the grocery store, cornering me in produce. Accidents happen to old people, especially ones who don't mind their own business. My voice carried across the store. "Are you threatening me because I'm testifying against Larry Kelly in the elder fraud case?" Shoppers pulled out phones, recording. The men fled before police arrived. Officer Chen, different from the FBI agent, took my statement. "This establishes a pattern of witness intimidation. With the video evidence, we can file charges." Frank identified both men that afternoon. Marcus Williams and Tony Martinez both work for Larry's construction company. Both have records for assault. Phone records will prove Larry's involvement. The real escalation came at 11 p.m. on April 30th. Motion sensors triggered in the backyard. 3 figures in ski masks approached with crowbars and bats. Jake's team activated floodlights and the loudspeaker. "You're being recorded. Police are en route." They smashed my garden sculptures anyway. Spray-painted drop charges on the wall, shattered the greenhouse windows. One approached the back door with his crowbar raised. From the safe room, I watched on monitors while speaking to 911. Police arrived in 4 minutes, an eternity when violence threatens. 2 suspects fled immediately. The third, tangled in my hedge, was pulling off his mask when officers cuffed him. Tony Martinez, Larry's foreman. "Larry Kelly paid us $10,000, Tony shouted as they led him away. "He said just scare the old man, make him drop charges. I got texts proving it," Detective Morrison called the next morning. Tony flipped for immunity immediately. "We have Larry's texts ordering the intimidation, payment records, even written instructions. Combined with the attempted break-in, we're charging Larry with conspiracy to commit assault, witness tampering, and attempted murder." Larry's arrest at his attorney's office turned violent. Frank witnessed it, calling me with details. He fought 3 officers, screaming about Wilma setting him up. Broke a window trying to escape. They added resisting arrest and assault on officers to his charges. Bails revoked permanently. Wilma immediately distanced herself through her lawyer, claiming no knowledge of Larry's actions, offering to testify against him. The FBI observed her trying to liquidate hidden assets, booking flights to countries without extradition treaties. Federal marshals offered me protection, which I accepted. The safe house was sterile but secure, nothing like the home I'd shared with Emily for 35 years. Media coverage exploded. Construction owner attempts, murder for hire against elderly father-in-law, and millionaire's daughter orchestrates massive elder fraud ring. During a strategy meeting at Douglas's office, federal prosecutors joined our team. RICO charges were being prepared. Asset forfeiture expanded to include properties in 3 states. Both Larry and Wilma were racing to provide evidence against each other. Larry's recorded jail calls blame everything on Wilma, Douglas explained, claims she masterminded it all, that he was just muscle. Meanwhile, Wilma's emails show she was planning to flee the country and let Larry take the fall. "They're destroying each other," I observed, just as I predicted they would when pressure mounted. Frank's final report was comprehensive. 12 elderly victims identified, combined theft exceeding $20 million, money laundering through offshore accounts in 4 countries. Mrs. Patterson had lost her life savings. Mr. Rodriguez lost his home, all because my daughter and her husband saw vulnerability as opportunity. "The trial starts in 2 weeks, Douglas said. "Are you ready to face them in court?" "I've been ready since March 15th. That evening, I stood at Emily's grave with fresh flowers. "They chose their path, Emily. They could have had love, family, honest lives. Instead, they chose greed and cruelty. The children at MD Anderson will get their treatment. The court will restore the stolen funds. Justice is coming." The cemetery was peaceful, birds singing in the Texas heat. Soon I'd sit in a courtroom and watch my only child face the consequences of her choices. The Harris County Courthouse loomed before me like a fortress of justice, its limestone facade reflecting the morning sun as I climbed the steps for the first day of testimony. 3 months of preparation had led to this moment. Inside courtroom 314, the stage was set for the reckoning I'd orchestrated since discovering Etta's warning in February. Judge Martha Harrison commanded the elevated bench, her reputation for harsh sentences against elder abusers preceding her. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen organized files at the prosecution table with 2 assistants. At separate defense tables sat my daughter and her husband, Wilma in a borrowed conservative suit trying to appear respectable, Larry in an orange jumpsuit after his bail revocation. They refused to acknowledge each other, their partnership shattered by mutual betrayal. The gallery filled with media, victims, and curious citizens. Empty seats marked where families should have been, supporting the accused. Instead, strangers would witness their downfall. Wilma stared at me with naked hatred. Larry kept his eyes on his shackled hands. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Harrison," the bailiff announced. As we stood, I noticed the judge already studying the defendants with evident disgust. Sarah Chen called me as the first witness. "Mr. Gray, please describe the events of March 15th. My testimony was methodical, engineering precision applied to truth-telling. I presented the retirement party documents, explained how hidden text contained power of attorney papers among charity forms. The jury leaned forward as I played the recordings. Wilma's cruel laughter about her Hawaii villa dreams. Larry's prediction of my imminent death. These funds were designated for pediatric cancer treatment, I said, showing photos of Maria, James, and Aaliyah, the 3 children whose treatments were delayed. My daughter stole from dying children. One juror wiped tears. Several others glared at the defendants. Richard Stone, Wilma's attorney, attempted cross-examination. "Mr. Gray, isn't it true you're suffering from dementia? I scored 30 out of 30 on the cognitive assessment yesterday. Would you like to see the 3 separate neurological evaluations confirming my mental acuity? You entrapped my client. I documented a crime in progress. There's a significant difference." Judge Harrison leaned forward during the recordings, taking extensive notes. When the photos of the sick children appeared, her jaw tightened visibly. The next morning, Etta Ramirez commanded the courtroom with dignified fury. She held Emily's photograph while testifying, drawing strength from my late wife's image. "Wilma visited the bank 6 times in February," Etta stated clearly. "She asked how to access Ray's accounts without his knowledge. She tried to bribe me with $5,000. When I refused, she said her father was wasting family money on strangers instead of blood." The evidence mounted: bank security footage, Etta's contemporaneous notes, email threats from Wilma attempting to get Etta fired. "Emily made me promise to protect Ray." Etta's voice cracked slightly. When I mentioned her mother's wishes, Wilma laughed. She said, "Mom's dead, her opinions don't matter anymore." Several jurors looked disgusted. 2 shook their heads. Michael Torres's cross-examination backfired spectacularly. "You violated bank confidentiality. I reported suspected elder abuse as required by Texas law. You're biased against my clients." Etta's response was surgical. "I'm biased against thieves who steal from elderly parents, yes." Over the next week, other victims testified. Mrs. Patterson, Emily's former hospice nurse, described losing her house to Wilma's real estate manipulation. She said it was for a better care facility. I ended up homeless for 3 months. The elderly woman showed photos of herself sleeping in a shelter. Mr. Rodriguez detailed Larry's construction fraud. $400,000 charged for $5,000 in actual work. When I questioned the bills, he said accidents happen to old people who cause problems. FBI agent Chen presented the broader conspiracy. This was an organized criminal enterprise. RICO statutes clearly apply. We've traced money laundering through 4 countries. By May 25th, the pattern was undeniable. 7 elderly victims, identical manipulation tactics, over 20 million stolen. Media coverage intensified daily. I declined all interviews, letting the evidence speak. Then came Dr. Amanda Foster from MD Anderson. She carried medical files and updated photos of the 3 children I'd tried to help. 8-year-old Tommy's treatment was delayed 2 months because the funding disappeared, she testified. His tumor grew 40% during that delay. The stolen funds were his only hope for the experimental therapy. She showed Tommy's photo, thin, bald from chemotherapy, but still smiling. The courtroom went silent. Several jurors cried openly. Even Larry shifted uncomfortably. Wilma tried to maintain her composure, but her mask was cracking. For the first time since March, I broke publicly. "That child might die because of greed," I said, voice shaking. Judge Harrison called a brief recess. Douglas comforted me in the hallway while I regained control. As court adjourned, Prosecutor Chen announced, "Defense may call witnesses tomorrow. Mr. Kelly, you're expected to testify." Larry nodded, shooting venom at Wilma. As we filed out, Larry's attorney approached the prosecutor with a folder marked, "Confidential Plea Agreement." Douglas called me at 6 a.m. the next morning. "Ray, you need to hear this. Larry's taking the stand against Wilma, and his lawyer just delivered evidence we didn't even know existed." June 1st's testimony became a masterclass in criminal self-destruction. Larry shuffled to the witness stand in shackles, orange jumpsuit replacing his expensive suits, a fresh bruise darkening his left eye from a jail altercation. He avoided Wilma's burning stare, speaking directly to Prosecutor Chen instead. "She started planning this in 2022, Larry began, his voice steady with rehearsed conviction. "Made me study elder law loopholes for months. She picked victims at her real estate office, specifically targeting clients without close family. She called them golden geese." The documents Larry's attorney provided stunned even the prosecution. Wilma's handwritten list of potential victims with estimated net worth, calculations of profit margins, emails detailing manipulation, strategies with subject lines like Operation Inheritance and Early Withdrawal Plan. Then came the recording Larry had secretly made. Wilma's voice filled the courtroom. "Dad trusts me completely, the fool. We'll take everything and blame his age. If he fights back, we'll have him declared incompetent. I've already got a doctor who'll sign anything for $10,000. The jury's shocked faces told the story. 2 members covered their mouths. Wilma exploded from her seat. "Liar! You pathetic coward! This was all your idea." She hurled her water glass at Larry. It shattered against the witness stand barrier. Bailiffs restrained her as she lunged forward. "Remove the defendant," Judge Harrison commanded. "Mrs. Kelly, you're in contempt. One more outburst and you'll watch your trial from a holding cell." As they dragged Wilma out, she screamed, "He's lying! I'll destroy you, Larry! You're dead!" My emotions churned. Satisfaction at the evidence, profound sadness at my daughter's complete moral collapse, relief that every terrible truth was emerging. The forensic accountant testified next, revealing the money's path through shell companies in Delaware, accounts in the Cayman Islands, Bitcoin conversions attempting to hide the trail, properties purchased with stolen funds in 3 states. The criminal enterprise value exceeded $30 million. Larry's confessions continued for hours. Other victims we hadn't identified. Bribes paid to city officials for paperwork approval. A nursing home administrator taking kickbacks for resident referrals. Each revelation brought new gasps from the gallery. Wilma's attorney grew increasingly desperate. "I request a mistrial," Richard Stone pleaded. "On what grounds?" Judge Harrison's voice dripped skepticism. "My client cannot receive fair treatment with this prejudicial testimony." "Your client should have considered that before stealing from dying children." Motion denied. During breaks, I met with other victims. We formed an informal support group, sharing resources for recovery, planning how to distribute restitution fairly. Mrs. Patterson held my hand. "You saved us all, Ray. Without your courage, they'd still be stealing." June 5th brought breaking news. The courtroom TV showed footage. Wilma arrested at Bush International Airport with a fake passport, $200,000 cash in her luggage, heading to Vietnam, which has no extradition treaty with the United States. Douglas filled in details the news missed. She cut her ankle monitor with garden shears, used a car hidden at her cousin's house for weeks. The FBI tracked her through a phone she forgot to leave behind. Complete amateur hour. The arrest video was damning. Wilma in a blonde wig and sunglasses, fighting federal marshals, screaming about persecution while passengers filmed everything on their phones. The footage went viral within hours. Additional charges piled up. Flight from justice, bail jumping, false identification, obstruction of justice. Larry's lawyer immediately capitalized. "This proves Ms. Kelly's consciousness of guilt. Mr. Kelly tried to stop her criminal impulses, but was overpowered by her manipulation." Agent Chen called that evening. "We found another $2 million she'd hidden in cryptocurrency accounts. Your daughter was planning this escape for months. She's more dangerous than we initially assessed." By June 10th, both defendants were testifying against each other in a vicious cycle of mutual destruction. Larry claimed manipulation and coercion. Wilma alleged threats and abuse. Each provided evidence against the other: text messages, photos of them celebrating after successful thefts, joint bank accounts proving equal participation. Neither could produce character witnesses. Wilma's colleagues refused to testify. Larry's own mother took the stand against him, describing years of elder abuse in their own family. Former employees detailed wage theft and intimidation. Ex-partners revealed previous frauds that had gone unprosecuted. My victim impact statement was the hardest testimony I'd ever given. They didn't just steal money. They stole trust, family bonds, the very concept of love between parent and child. They chose greed over everything sacred. I've lost a daughter forever, not to death, but to something worse. She chose to become a predator, hunting the very generation that raised her. The civil forfeiture hearing brought final financial justice. A federal judge ordered complete asset seizure. Every property, vehicle, piece of jewelry, bank account, all frozen and liquidated. Victims would receive full restitution. My $3 million would be restored. MD Anderson would finally receive the promised donations for Tommy, Maria, and Alia's treatments. In the courthouse hallway, Wilma and Larry passed each other under marshal escort. She spat at him. He laughed in her face. The marshals quickly separated them, but the image was caught by news cameras, the final destruction of their criminal partnership. Frank James delivered his last report. Found 3 more victims in California. All will receive compensation thanks to your case. You've changed how elder abuse is prosecuted nationwide. Judge Harrison's voice echoed through the courtroom. Closing arguments tomorrow, verdict expected by week's end. My exhaustion was bone deep, but resolution approached. Tomorrow, justice would finally speak its verdict. The jury filed back into the courtroom after 3 days of deliberation, their faces revealing nothing as I gripped the armrest of my chair. 40 years of engineering discipline, barely containing my anticipation. 3 sleepless nights had passed since they'd begun their considerations. Douglas's reassurances felt hollow now. Other victims gathered behind me in silent solidarity. Mrs. Patterson clutching her purse, Mr. Rodriguez fingering his rosary discreetly. Courtroom 314 was packed to capacity, standing room only. National media cameras waited outside for the verdict that would set precedent for elder abuse prosecution nationwide. Wilma sat in a fresh orange uniform, her hands trembling visibly. Larry slumped in his chair, already defeated, staring at nothing. The prosecutors appeared confident, but tense. Defense attorneys shuffled papers, already planning appeals. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Harrison's voice cut through the silence. The foreman stood. We have, Your Honor. The paper passed from foreman to bailiff to judge seemed to move in slow motion. Judge Harrison's expression remained neutral as she read. The silence was absolute, suffocating. On count 1, conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Guilty. The foreman's voice was clear, unwavering. Count 2, wire fraud. Guilty. Count 3, theft from a charitable trust. Guilty. By the 10th count, Wilma was sobbing. By the 20th, she'd collapsed forward. All 47 counts came back guilty. Larry never moved, occasionally nodding as if he'd expected nothing else. He glanced at Wilma once with pure contempt. Behind me, Mrs. Patterson wept with relief. Mr. Rodriguez crossed himself quietly. Reporters' fingers flew across phone screens. Judge Harrison called for order twice. Dad, look at me, please! Wilma's scream pierced the courtroom. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. The daughter I'd loved died on March 15th. This criminal just wore her face. 2 weeks later, we reconvened for sentencing. Victim impact statements had been collected, recommendations prepared. The media coverage had intensified rather than diminished. I'd written and rewritten my final statement dozens of times. Judge Harrison didn't mince words. This case represents betrayal at its most heinous, theft from dying children, abuse of parental trust. The defendants have shown no genuine remorse, only regret at being caught. Wilma Kelly, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison with no possibility of early release for 5 years. You are permanently barred from any fiduciary position. Restitution is set at $10 million. Wilma's keening wail filled the courtroom. Larry Kelly, due to your cooperation with authorities, you are sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Restitution is set at $5 million. Additional charges may still be filed. Dad, you destroyed my life, Wilma screamed as guards moved to restrain her. I'm your only child. Mom would be ashamed of you. I stood slowly, my voice steady. You destroyed your own life when you chose greed over family. Your mother would be heartbroken by what you became. That afternoon in Douglas's office, the financial resolution exceeded expectations. Properties sold at auction brought $8 million. Vehicles and jewelry added another $500,000. Hidden accounts recovered $4 million. Business assets liquidated for $3 million. Total recovery, $15.5 million. Every victim would be fully compensated with interest. My $3.2 million would be restored completely. The surplus would establish a victim compensation fund. I want it all to go to MD Anderson, I said immediately. Every penny for the children. Set up the Emily Gray Fund. Douglas began drafting papers while other victims blessed my decision. We took a group photo that would later become the face of elder abuse prevention nationwide. By evening, we'd established the Gray Foundation for Elder Protection. Initial funding came from the recovered assets. The board would include victims and advocates. Our mission, prevention through education and support for those already victimized. Local businesses immediately offered donations. Attorneys volunteered their time. Banks proposed partnerships for fraud detection training. Government grants became available. What started as revenge had transformed into prevention. This could help thousands, Douglas said, reviewing the incorporation papers. Your case changed everything, Ray. Justice became prevention. Emily would be proud. Tomorrow, 3 children would begin their cancer treatments. Tommy, Maria, and Aaliyah would have their chance at life. I'd written a letter to Wilma that I'd never send, explaining how her greed had nearly killed innocent children, but ultimately saved countless elderly from future predators. As I signed the foundation papers, my phone buzzed with a text from the Federal Detention Center. Wilma Kelly requests visitation. The drive to the Women's Federal Detention Center took 2 hours, giving me time to prepare for what might be my last conversation with the person who used to be my daughter. The Texas summer heat shimmered off the highway, matching the burn of unresolved emotion in my chest. Security screening was thorough. Metal detectors, pat-downs, personal items locked away. The antiseptic smell of industrial cleaning products couldn't mask the underlying odor of despair. Through multiple gates and checkpoints, I followed the guard to the visiting room. Thick scratched plexiglass separated 2 rows of plastic chairs. Phone handsets hung on each side. Wilma sat waiting, her appearance shocking. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on her diminished frame. Without hair dye, gray streaked through what had once been perfectly styled hair. Her face had aged 10 years and 2 months. Yet her eyes still held that familiar defiance. She grabbed the handset. I'm still your daughter. My daughter died on March 15th, I replied quietly. The person you became killed her. You can't mean that. The Wilma I raised wouldn't steal from dying children. She wouldn't rob elderly victims of their life savings. That person is gone. I made one mistake, her voice cracked through the phone. You made hundreds of calculated choices over 3 years. Each elderly victim was a choice, each forged document, each lie. When I get out, you'll be dead anyway. The venom in her voice was pure, perhaps. But the foundation I'm building will help thousands long after I'm gone. Your crime became their salvation. I hate you. I know. I still love who you used to be. Goodbye, Wilma. I stood to leave. She pounded on the glass, screaming words I couldn't hear and didn't want to. The guard restrained her as I walked away. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. 2 weeks later, MD Anderson Cancer Center unveiled the Emily Gray Pediatric Treatment Center. 200 people attended, including the 3 children whose lives had been saved by the restored funds. Media coverage focused on hope rather than crime for once. The new wing gleamed with bright colors and cheerful murals. Play areas were visible through windows. Advanced treatment rooms bore names of donors. Emily's portrait hung in the lobby, her smile welcoming sick children to a place of healing. Tommy, 8 years old and responding beautifully to treatment, stood beside me during the dedication. Maria, 6, was officially in remission. James, 10, had started the experimental therapy that insurance wouldn't cover. All 3 were alive because justice had prevailed. My wife Emily died of cancer in this hospital, I told the gathered crowd. She spent her last days volunteering in the pediatric ward. She believed in choosing hope over despair, love over bitterness. These children represent that choice. From the darkness of betrayal, we choose the light of healing. Dr. Foster announced that the funds would treat hundreds of children over the coming years. Tommy hugged me. Maria gave me a crayon drawing of angels. James's mother couldn't stop crying. For the first time since March, I allowed my own tears to fall freely. The Gray Foundation for Elder Protection held its first workshop a week later. 50 seniors attended, learning to recognize fraud warning signs, protect their assets, and document suspicious behavior. Within a month, we'd prevented 3 attempted elder abuse cases. Trust but verify everything, I taught them. Family members can be predators too. Never sign without reading. Always have a witness. Support groups formed organically. Victims found healing through helping others. Shame transformed into strength. By month's end, 20 cities had requested chapters. The Senate Committee on Aging invited me to testify about federal legislation. Letters arrived daily. An elderly woman in Oregon detected her grandson's theft attempt using our checklist. A man in Florida stopped a suspicious transfer his daughter initiated. Families reconciled after recognizing warning signs early. Each letter reminded me that Wilma's crime had inadvertently saved hundreds. One evening, sitting in the same backyard chair where I'd planned my revenge 18 months ago, I reflected on the journey. I'd lost a daughter, but gained a mission. Emily's memory was honored not through vengeance, but through protection of the vulnerable. Mrs. Patterson arrived unexpectedly. "Ray, my grandson wants to meet his hero. You saved our family." The next morning brought Tommy's 9th birthday party at the hospital. His cancer was retreating steadily. That afternoon, I testified before the Senate via video link about elder protection legislation that would bear Emily's name. That evening, I consulted with a new victim from California, walking them through the recovery process. The foundation had grown beyond imagination. Chapters in 12 cities, 3 million in donations, 200 volunteers, federal legislation advancing. Wilma served kitchen duty in federal prison. Larry had been injured by fellow inmates who despised anyone who hurt the elderly. Both were forgotten by everyone, except their victims. As sunset painted the Houston sky purple and gold, Emily's wind chimes rang in the evening breeze. The same chimes that had witnessed my planning now sang of redemption. They thought they'd stolen my retirement. Instead, they'd given me purpose. They thought they'd destroyed my family. Instead, they'd created a nationwide family of protected elderly and grateful families. "Emily," I whispered to her photograph, "we did it. The children are safe. The elderly are protected. From our loss came their salvation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new victims to help, new predators to stop. But tonight, for the first time since that March evening, when my daughter chose greed over love, I felt peace. Justice had been served. The vulnerable were protected. And somewhere, Emily was smiling. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.